Hello everyone. We continue our writers' meeting with Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello. Dr. Laitman. Hello everyone. Duty. And as in every Friday, we want to continue to scrutinize the theoretical model proposed by Dr. Guy Tzchakov and the friends regarding a study of the effect of the connection between us on physical health, or in other words, how the connection between us brings about health, also in other systems. And Guy will open, please. Guy. Thank you, Dudy. Thank you. Hello, Rav, and all the friends. So, like in previous meetings, our goal today is to understand what exactly happens in the process of integral education, to take this one step forward. And in order to get to assist the explanation, we have a presentation. If we can share, there we go. Can everyone see the presentation? So the study we propose and want to do is the effects of integral education on the physical and mental health of the person. So here we have the results and the processes that will explain how exactly education for integral connection affects health. So we have certain assertions we want to examine to see what the study can include and what it doesn't include. Then we will focus on the connection itself, which is something we learned about from other talks, and we need to see how exactly to do this practically. So Avinam, can you give us the next slide? So first of all, before going into the model itself, any model in social studies, because it's impossible to actually predict human behavior, needs to have some boundaries regarding which state it deals with. So, we as humanity, humanity is undergoing a great upheaval in terms of the job market. We have technology and automation, and we had other trends such as that which the coronavirus accelerated greatly. The coronavirus also shrinks the workforce, basically. People buy less, people work less, businesses which aren't necessary are expected to close and not reopen. And another thing different to other models is that our assumption is that this is not a temporary thing, that we will ultimately return to buying needless things which we don't need, but rather that the system is now self-cleaning and those things won't return. The other assertion is that we're not talking about classical unemployment where there are not enough places of employment and too many people who want to work. Rather, our assumption is that people won't return to the professions and works they did before. Is that a proper assertion to begin with? Dr. Laitman. Yes, perhaps it's you can call it an assertion or something else, but we can try to connect to ourselves all those worried about the ecology and climate change, because we see in this a very meaningful cause for change in those terms, climate, and because it's they have a lot of power, these people, these organizations, and we can continue with them with some success. Guy. Yes, excellent. Okay, so we'll add that. Now, continuing here, because many people are out of the workforce, there will be a need to fill up their time. We're talking about very large percentages of the population, which we cannot ignore. every economic model says it's a very high percentage, but our assertion is that it will be something on the scale of 50%, 60% unemployment, which is much higher. And here, this brings us to the central issue, which is that there will be an understanding to shape a new man. Dr. Laitman, yes, we don't call it unemployment. There is no unemployment. What we mean is that these people, they may not be in the workforce, but they're not unemployed. These are people who are now taking new roles in the new society. Guy. Yes, and continuing what you just said, we need to redefine our life goals. Today, a person defines his life goals according to, well, what profession he will have, how much he will profit, and here we change a person's the definitions of the person. So we know that. And what we need is a solution that will enable a person to maintain the lifestyle he's accustomed to, and on the other hand, will allow him to contend with a very meaningful, profound change that he's going to undergo, especially in terms of his self-image and how other people see him. That's one of the problems, especially with unemployment, so to speak. Dr. Laitman, here we have to add that according to the calling of the times, we are required to change our attitude to the environment, to our lives, to our work, and we have no choice. We see that objectively this is how it is, due to the balance of powers that are acting upon us, affecting us, and so each one in the society must shake off his previous perspective on life and come to a new perspective, a new outlook. Avihu, Dr. Laitman, can you perhaps be more specific? Dr. Laitman. Yes, if I went several times a year abroad and I worked from day to night, making this and that much money, I made all sorts of plans related to my bourgeois life, so to speak, my previous life. Well, now there has to be a new lifestyle, more calm, less jumping around. We need to see this as crucial, and also to understand that the trouble of many is half comfort, as we say. The environment, the influence of the environment can bring every person quickly and with a good feeling to that new life. Guy. Yes, Avinam, if you can bring back the slide. So one of our main assertions is that people who participate in the process will receive a scholarship from the state for participating in integral education. We don't go into how exactly this will come about, but this is a very important part of the model. And as you said many times, this is not some unemployment grant. It's a scholarship where a person has to study to get it. He works in this process. Dr. Laitman, yes, we take his participation as his work. Guy, yes, that's a very important element which we hope will come about. And another assertion is that this whole process happens in a group. A person doesn't go through it individually, but rather as part of the group. For us, it may be obvious, but it needs to be emphasized. Dr. Laitman, all these clauses have to be opened, elaborated on a bit. Guy, do you see anything missing here in our model? Dr. Laitman, no, we need to elaborate a bit, and you'll see how each one of these clauses turns into a whole page. Guy, Okay, we'll try to do that. We will see. Guy, let's see the model itself, the theoretical model. So I'll just give a little introduction here before we go into what we're seeing here. When we want to examine research, a possible research avenue, let's call it, we need to see what the intervention is that we are affecting. Right. This for us is integral education. On the right side, this is our method. And we say that integral education is going, as we see it, to positively affect, as of now, in order to simplify the model. Of course, we can speak about much more, but it's going to affect, as of now, four main outcomes, realities, which we see in the leftmost part of the graph. So, integral education, from many talks we had before, integral education, we say, will bring down sickness levels. It will make people healthier if they go through this. The person that comes out of this integral education course will be a positive element in society. We have to understand what this means as well. Integral education, another thing we gleaned from previous talks, is that it will lower loneliness, which is a plague in today's society, and any innovation that can lower the feeling of loneliness will be happily accepted in society now, we know. And the fourth thing is just contentment, a person's happiness with his life. So these are the four factors that we chose to focus on given previous talks. Dr. Laitman, okay. Guy, so now we want to specify, we tried specifying how exactly this happens in the model here, meaning why will integral education make people healthier? Here we want to elaborate on the first process that we assume is happening in this process of integral education. These pluses and minuses describes a positive or a negative connection between these rubrics. So if I look at the connection between social support and mental fortitude, the more a person feels this support from the group, his mental fortitude increases. That's the plus. Now the minus is a negative connection, meaning the more a person is powerful mentally, then his chance of being sick is decreased. It's a negative connection. So I want to start from the first submodel and then ask you questions. Now we say that people who participate in integral education feel social support because they are part of a group. Avinoam, can you continue to the next slide, describing exactly what social support is? There. Social support means it's a state where a person's needs are supplied by others, what he needs is provided by others, and also we understand that people are social animals, they're always part of different social frameworks, and so social support is always a plus, a positive in any processes that person goes through. Now our question is, do you agree with this definition, or is it too narrow as you see it now? Dr. Laitman, I don't know. We need to think. These definitions are usually very... Look, I don't know what to do about it. Maybe I'll take an interest in this later and write next to it what I think. And you will see if to add or to subtract or to just not take it into account altogether. Guy. Okay, so we say the following. The social support that integral education generates will have four immediate positive effects. One, it will increase a person's mental fortitude. Mental fortitude is defined as the person's ability to deal with difficulties and and stress. Yes, and this is the accepted definition of the thing. So that's the first immediate outcome. The second immediate outcome is that social support will decrease the feeling of loneliness. People in a group won't suffer from loneliness. It will also elevate what we call social intelligence, right? Social emotional intelligence. This is not a widely known term. It's the ability of a person to govern his feelings and understand the feelings of others, to be sensitive to others, to be open towards others, not to be blocked off, right? Separated. That's the definition of social emotional intelligence. Of course, it's a much broader definition generally, but yes. And the last thing, the fourth thing, is that social support will lower levels of anxiety, which today is also a very difficult thing, a very big problem. People who are socially active experience less anxiety. It's something we know, but here we say we have a means by which to facilitate this, and there aren't many of those. Now, I know that these are definitions that you're not used to working with. Perhaps they're a bit narrow. Dr. Laitman. Yes, it's a bit limited, but what can you do? Guy, one of the reasons it's so limited is so that we have the ability to measure these things later, but I want to go into this. How do you see these things as limited? Dr. Laitman, what's written here, for example, the social and emotional intelligence, the ability of a person to evaluate and understand and govern his own feelings and the feelings of others, it's... I don't know if... perhaps you can define social emotional intelligence? Dr. Laitman, I don't think that social emotional intelligence can offer a person, well, maybe a bit to identify, to somehow try to understand, but to actually govern his feelings and the feelings of others, no, that appears to me, it seems to me, well, if it's in a 10, in some certain special style of group work, perhaps that's why it's called social emotional intelligence, but it's generally impossible. The common person will not be able to do anything about it, affect it or govern it. Kai. Eli, perhaps you can relate because you work with this concept a lot. Eli, so I hear that Rav is saying that a person cannot govern his emotions. So what does govern a person's emotions? Can a person affect this in some way? Dr. Laitman, only if he's part of a proper environment, and with that environment he goes over, well, all the stages of correction, but alone? Never. We see that from generation to generation, as many psychologists as you may have, people become more sick mentally. Guy, so we can we say that a person that undergoes the process becomes more sensitive to the emotions of others? Dr. Laitman, he begins to identify with others, and so others affect him more. So we can tie a person to others, meaning to the society. And in the society, there's a certain frequency and amplitude which are different from that of the individual. And so by that, we balance the person out. But if not that, then it's only through medication and drugs, which is not actually healing. Aviv. So to be more accurate here, with others, do you mean the general population or his small group? Dr. Laitman, no, the general population, that's far off, only his little group. But let's just say it's a certain environment that influences him. Eli, but he can come to feel responsibility over the atmosphere in the group he works with, to understand that when he criticizes things, he gives off a negative air, and when he uplifts everyone, when he's positive, he can do good. Dr. Laitman, yes, he can learn that, but we're talking about people who, to begin with, are sickly, let's call them. They're sick to begin with. So what can you do with them? To make them govern society through positive or negative influences on the society? They cannot even maintain themselves in a balanced way. What do you mean by sick, Dr. Laitman? Dr. Laitman, well, mentally, a person who is given to ups and downs, his emotions control him and he cannot control it, really. We're talking about such people, yes? Guy, no, we're talking about the average, not sick person who enters a process of integral education. And the concept of social emotional intelligence relates to a person where relates to a process where a person becomes more sensitive towards his feelings, is better able to regulate them and also to relate to others. We're not talking about psychological treatment. Dr. Laitman, I didn't refer to that as well, but we're all going into such processes now with these viruses, etc., that, well, everyone will need some balance. That's clear. Guy, and integral education can provide that balance, right? Dr. Laitman, yes, because it is integral. Guy, what do you mean because it's integral? Dr. Laitman, because we mean to balance out the person through society. Person is part of a society. Guy, so there is a saying here, if I understand it correctly, that the previous means by which to calm people will no longer work as we enter the new state. Dr. Laitman, no, you cannot calm a person down individually anymore because he is part of a society, he depends on the society, and the society as a whole is like a sea with its waves going up and down, where a person wants to grab hold of some piece of wood to be saved from drowning under these big waves. So there's no alternative here to connecting a person to the society, attaching him to them, to calm him through the society. Eli, but me, I am a part of the society. I affect and influence the atmosphere in the society, right? That's a feeling that develops in a person. He doesn't remain blocked off to that, right? Dr. Laitman, well, that's a process. First of all, we have to teach them to be connected to the society, where one just ties himself to that piece of wood and he doesn't care about what happens to him because, well, he has this piece of wood on which he rides the waves. Guy. All right, another very central issue, if we can get the slide. Yes. In integral education, what we require as part of the model is mental fortitude, something that's widely sought after today. Now, if a person is stronger mentally when facing all these integral processes, well, will this help? Will the society help him? Or Dr. Laitman, I think all these things will end up failing and we won't be able to help a person in any way other than tying him to an environment. And then he will feel safe. And why? Because we're all like that. We're all the same. All these influences, like the coronavirus, come to us now in an integral manner, a global manner, however you put it. But it affects society as a whole. rather than the individual. A view. Can I ask a question? So mental fortitude is very relevant because we're talking about crises that we're going through now. So mental fortitude is very important, especially now with the coronavirus and so on. So if a person undergoes this integral group process, will it fortify him against these crises? Dr. Laitman, I see only one solution. The more a person is connected to society, the more you have these individuals who are afraid, they can't understand, feel what's happening. If these people connect together with that feeling, they will get some feeling of confidence. Why? It's not certain, to them at least, but the Creator is in them, illuminating them. And so instinctively, like you have little animals where something big comes and threatens them, they all stick together tightly. And that's what we will feel. That's how the Creator is organizing us. So these little animals, when you have the storm, bringing them together, well, that's in a time of storm. My question is about regular time, Dr. Laitman. There won't be any regular, normal time anymore. It's not that I hope or not hope. I'm certain that this is how it's going to happen because the pace is increasing of you. So you say that we're advancing towards a reality with many upheavals, many extreme ups and downs. Yes. Dr. Laitman, yes, and that will bring us to connection ultimately, a view. And then this process where a person acquires mental fortitude, that will allow him to contend with these ups and downs, right? Dr. Laitman, one who knows how to connect himself to the society internally. It's not that he works with them externally, that's unrelated. He can be 20 hours a day with others, but rather, the more he is mentally, spiritually, let's call it, willing to open himself up to others. So imagine to yourself, it's only when you open yourself up and connect with an open heart to the others, then a sigh of relief. You feel that immediately you become calm. Of you. And this calmness enables you to contend with these crises and then problems, yes? Dr. Laitman, yes. Guy, okay, so I want to see that I understand correctly. We're talking about the method of integral connection, integral education, which allows a person to open himself up correctly and connect to the others, yes? Dr. Laitman, yes, and to gain confidence and perseverance and more. Also, he can then take care of his family, his wife and children better. It's a view. So that's an important point. It's not only the person who grows stronger, but he also influences his close environment, his family and others, yes? Dr. Laitman, yes. Guy, so that's something we wanted to scrutinize going forward. Perhaps we can do it now. So a person who's part of this process of integral education, learning to connect in an inner way to others, is he an agent of change, also affecting others in the same way? Dr. Laitman, you don't even have to explain this to him. That's what he will do by default. But other than having talks with him and all sorts of activities and exercises, we also do that. We work with them in the 10, in that way, in a circle, right? Let us now see how we can speak to other people and bring them our feeling of confidence and high spirits and so on. Yes. Guy. All right, so we here offer a kind of raft in a stormy reality, right? This raft called integral education, yes? Dr. Laitman, yes. Now, of course, from here, we can link it to family, to children, to the elderly, the whole of human society, everything you have. You don't have room for you don't need all these arrows anymore. Guy, yeah, but it adds arrows. Dr. Laitman, yes, but you won't have enough space for all the arrows. Guy, all right, I get it. It'll make the square smaller. Now, another very important link here is between integral education and the meaning in life. We have very strong claim here. We say that a person who is on that raft of integral education feels that life is more meaningful, and this will become very relevant in light of what we said before, that people's self-image is going to come crashing down soon because they lose their work and so on. So my question is, do you agree with the fact that integral education generates a feeling of meaning in life for the participants? Dr. Laitman, of course, but it's much deeper than you go into here. It's not just meaning in life in a general sense. It's not that he feels that he does good to the society, like socialists say. No. Here he begins to feel that there is an inner force within nature which encompasses all of our reality and existence and universe. This is one force, and the more we have this integral connection between us, the closer we are to that force, and we can understand it and use it. And by that we come to the feeling of the meaning of life and the essence of life. The essence of life, not only purpose in life, right, or meaning, as you have in the slide there, but the essence. Right. The purpose of life is something more intellectual, but the meaning of life, the essence of life, is something in your soul. It's not even something that you can feel in regular terms. Guy, okay, so that's a very meaningful thing. So let's take that meaning of life concept which we have here. So this generates a person which provides a net plus to the society, right? He's a positive element. Dr. Laitman, yes, certainly. The society becomes healthier, more stable, and how to put it, protected against all these rapid changes, like those waves in the sea that we talked about. So you have a society that's becoming more and more mature. We, throughout our history, always thought that a more mature society is one that is wiser in terms of, making things work in the corporeal world, making more profits, growing richer. But now we're talking about a more meaningful concept. It's a society that understands the secret of life, the meaning of life. It's a society that understands that it needs to establish itself in the way of each one helps his friend. Right? That's the only kind of society that can be established in the new global integral reality as a stable society. Guy. And then the positive element here, that's generated by each one helping each other, or what? Dr. Laitman, not just that, it's about us finding a new meaning and essence in life. It's not just about making a profit and becoming better off. It's because you feel what life is about. You and your life, you are in a certain state of understanding and completion in those terms. You understand life and life understands you. Aviu. So can we translate what you just said into positive products? Let's say, as you said before, a person grows stronger mentally, and then he can contend with all sorts of crises, and then he helps his family as well. Dr. Laitman, more than that, he loves life, such a person. He loves life. Life isn't something he needs to contend with, then. Life is there for him to enable him to open himself up He will embrace life. I'm short on words here, but you try. Avihu, what will his contribution to society be? Dr. Laitman, the more he connects to the society and the society connects to him, the more the society becomes open to the concepts of the meaning of life, the essence and purpose of life, the proper perception of life, then he and the society will begin to enter the inner layers, the meaning of life. They will begin to discover the inner forces of life which govern us, and so we reach a state where we are aware of them, we know them. Avihu. So following that, will it be possible to say, we said previously that a person is then an agent of change. Can we say that we sow seeds of fortitude in a very fragile society here? Dr. Laitman, yes, of course. Guy, right, so now I understand that we should have constructed the model in a different way. Tell me if I understand it correctly. Avinoam, can we see the model again? So according to the concept you talked about here, the meaning of life, so the first thing we have here is integral education. That's our intervention, and it provides a person with a need for the essence of life, now meaning of life, and the meaning of life is what generates all these positive outcomes here, right? The active element here, let's call it, is the meaning of life, and that brings about all the positive changes that we see in the model, right? Dr. Laitman, I would make it a circle. For now, this is what I think. A circle. Because the person flows from one definition to the other. You see, now we have to add meaning in life. Now, a feeling of belonging and stress and all these things. Guy, this is possible to do, by the way, because meaning in life, because it's not a well-established concept, at least in scientific literature. If we have it as a circle, let me just say this. In a square, you indicate things you can measure directly. A circle indicates latent elements, which they're interconnected to so many other things. It's a higher order of... well, because meaning of life is composed of many, 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 many things, or is related to many, many, many things here. So, okay, so I just want to assume... Well, friends, do you have anything to ask before we advance with the model? Eli, Chaim, something we haven't heard yet? Chaim. Yes, regarding the circle, what I understood is that, Dr. Laitman, the whole model will be a circle. And deviation from the circle signifies to us that we need to go back in and to making things more round again, rounding things out. The whole model is round with all the data you have in there. And any deviation from that circle means we have to round it out even more. Chaim, what does it mean that the model is round? Dr. Laitman, because we all depend on each other and so on and so forth. Chaim, so what is a deviation from the circle? Dr. Laitman, where if it seems to us that something comes out of the circle indicates Chaim, mutual connection? Dr. Laitman, yes, mutual reciprocal connection, integral connection. Chaim, so can we call it mutual dependency? Dr. Laitman, connection is connection, dependency is a negative, but yeah, I suppose. Chaim, so when something comes out of the circle, it means that it's no longer connected to others, and Dr. Laitman. Yes, and then he needs the power, some force that will make him return to the circle. Well, never mind. I want just to say that these are very dynamic things. It's good for the explanation to draw it this way, but this is a living model. Guy, yes, the model we drew here is a one-directional model. We have something influencing something else. But as I understand from you, that this is a repetitive process where each element feeds other elements, and it's a closed system where one deviation will break the whole system. We can also measure such models. We have these things. Chaim. So we have a recursive, spiral recursive system, perhaps something in that direction. Perhaps we can have a model. Eli talked about it. Eli, perhaps even 3D. Yes, a three-dimensional model, because you see this as one ball of things that interact. Dr. Laitman, look, you have infinite directions to go in here, but let's not let's not complicate ourselves. Eli. Yes, but additionally, well, in addition to what Guy said, we have to see how all these things interact and influence each other ultimately. Dr. Laitman, if you add the concept of integrality, then I think by default you create the feedback here. A feedback loop. A view. Yes, you have feedback loops in a model that is interconnected, but it's a very complex thing. Dr. Laitman, let's continue for now. Guy, yes, let's continue. Now, in the model, a very well-established need is the need for belonging, right? To belong. Now, no one will argue against this. People have a need to be part of social groups. They need romantic relationships, family relationships. So our question is, will integral education fulfill one's need for belonging? Dr. Laitman, yes, most especially that. And the process of integral education itself is done in part of the group. And it also teaches the importance of belonging. It's also attained through belonging. Look, you cannot learn how to be integral, how to understand the integral system, if you don't feel the extent to which each and every element in that system belongs to the whole system, feels that it belongs. Guy, so you're saying that this is a condition for the rest of the outcomes. So a person who undergoes integral education and doesn't develop a feeling of belonging, or of affiliation, perhaps we can call it, will not develop the positive outcomes we mentioned. Dr. Laitman, yes, but we already said it should be round, so it's in there. Guy, Eli. So what's the connection between the meaning of life and the feeling of belonging? Dr. Laitman, how can you get any meaning of life if you don't feel belonging as belonging to the grand system? Where do you gain this understanding of the meaning of life? Within the system. How do you acquire this system and gain this meaning in life? It's only by becoming part of the system, participating with the system. Eli, so the feeling of belonging begets the feeling of the meaning of life. Yes? Dr. Laitman, yes. A view. Wait, this is important to scrutinize. So the belonging here is part of the model. Well, we thought it's with respect to the family or the community or the state where you feel connected to them. Dr. Laitman, well, it's about loneliness, isolation, but in either way, we're talking about the general system. Guy, right, so the general system here, belonging to the general system, I can measure it according to a feeling of belonging to many different systems a person is part of socially. Is that what you... Dr. Laitman, here it seems you want to turn the integral into individual measurements, particular measurements. Guy, well, you have no way of measuring the integral. Dr. Laitman, yes, okay, so do it that way. Guy, okay, these are transitional times. So a person who feels belonging, does he feel belonging not only in terms of the group he's studying with, but other groups also, his family, etc.? Dr. Laitman, they are also part of it, but as of now, with no awareness. Guy, and a person who's now more aware as a result of the process, Dr. Laitman, he's one of the main elements that determine the advancement of this system, that's development. And this development as a whole comes to us from nature. Guy, okay, so belonging is a central term here. So we have the feeling of belonging and the meaning of life. Now the last variable we didn't discuss yet. Avinoam, can you bring us back the model? It's a feeling of, perhaps this is connected to the meaning of life here, but it's a feeling of certain emotional relief, calmness. Now, what we know through research today is that the feeling of mental fortitude plus calmness, those things predict happiness. People who feel psychological well-being, this is what is defined today as happiness, right? So I understand that emotional well-being is a narrow term as you would define it, but what is a person who has emotional well-being? Dr. Laitman, it's a feeling of adhesion between the vessel and what fills the vessel. That's that. Guy, yeah, that will be easy to measure. A view, yes, that's very measurable. Guy, all right, but what's actually important is there a connection between the feeling of a meaning in life, as you defined previously, and what we now define as emotional well-being? Is it the same or are they different? Dr. Laitman, this mental well-being and the meaning of life, they are two different things, because the meaning of life can be something outside of me which I haven't attained yet, but I can measure with respect to vessels which are outside of me, because you have all sorts of systems here, external and internal systems and spiritual systems as well. It depends on where I am, but you have measurements there. It's how a person measures himself compared to the general integral vessel. Guy, so in terms of priority, first you get the feeling of a meaning of life, and then you have emotional well-being, rather not priority, in terms of what comes first. Dr. Laitman, yes, I would say that mental well-being is after a feeling of meaning in life, yes. Guy, okay, so we have a certain chronological order here, a certain order at least. So, all right.
Guy, לא שומעים אותך.
No sound from Guy. Guy, sorry, I was muted. Dr. Laitman, do you see any meaningful concepts which you deem to be lacking here in this model, in this approach? You're missing here? Dr. Laitman, well, look, I'm not going to open that up now. You have a huge number of those concepts that are missing here, but you have to have something simple where people understand. Well, the main thing is the goal, right? People have to understand that by this you compensate for all of the social problems, the problems in the family, national and international problems, the problems of the individual and of society, of the nation, the people and the government, etc. That by this you compensate for the entire, well, you cover the entire web of connection between people, of connections, on all levels. You, by that, take care of all of it. through integral education. Eli, so you can also say that when a person feels belonging, he feels the meaning in life, and out of that he feels emotional well-being, then he becomes a person who is more beneficial to society, he's less violent physically and verbally, he contributes more to the society, and we will see it through indicators related to the health of the society, yes? Dr. Laitman, yes, and I'm a bit surprised to see such a model from a person who's an economist by trade, right, and not some, you understand, some doctor, some psychologist or something, being so concerned about anxiety and loneliness and sickness, mental fortitude. It's a bit not according to. It's a small deviation, I suppose, even though these days it goes together. But I don't see the other half here. Meaning, what we propose here is, well, how to put it? A way in which a person doesn't think about corporeality. He's part of it, and this gives him everything he needs in corporeality. Corporeality seemingly is taken care of, right? But perhaps we can also tie to this some corporeal fortitude, economic fortitude, or how do you call it? Guy. Yes, but as we understood from you, these are external factors, right? The country provides, the nation provides a certain basket of essential, provides the essential needs for people. These are just, Dr. Laitman, no. How do you put a person into work and look, I think that integral education needs to be the center, the focal point of all the changes we can generate in the person, in his life. So where will he get these changes for his social life and so on? Guy, okay, so back to the model. Today I cannot come to a person and say, we also don't know what integral education includes. This is a different thing, but these days people, it doesn't speak to them yet. So in our model, what we included is high levels of unemployment, that's part of it, leading to it. Dr. Laitman, all right, this is the way you do it, but I want to say that we only discuss a very small part of integral education here, and that integral education covers our whole life. Eli, but this is something that can be explained, because once you go into education, when a person begins to understand himself and his life from a different perspective, he begins to comport himself differently in every area in life. From a taxi driver to a politician, they will see that when their orientation regarding the future and their perception of their role in society changes, it all changes. Dr. Laitman, all right, yes, of you. Also, this is part of how a person becomes adapted to life in the 21st century. This is part of what we wanted to talk about. Eli, yes, now people are discussing the ability to work as part of a team as being crucial to being good in your workplace, right? This is what all the studies now indicate. People are talking about this, the need to be socially active and socially competent. Dr. Laitman, is that it? Friends? Guy, we have some questions written down. Perhaps we asked them already. Avihu, we have some questions I can add. Guy, yes, so one of the questions we wrote down is, what are the effects of integral education in terms of, well, when you have people go through some program, whatever program, you have this assumption that people will become independent, capable of managing themselves. You now created a new perception of the world for people. You created a group out of them. They acquired some skills. There's a guide who worked with them. Now this guide won't be with them throughout their whole life, and they continue training their whole life. Dr. Laitman, no, their whole life. You cannot have a society without a leader. Guy, okay, that's different to what we thought. Dr. Laitman, it has to be a society that's constantly studying. They have constant work meetings, or whatever you call it, where they receive some training or teaching, constantly renewing it. And there are some inner conditions there for a society to turn from a corporeal society to a spiritual society. Guy. So the guide accompanies the group throughout the whole process. It never leaves. Dr. Laitman, through to the end of correction. Guy, that won't be easy to explain. Eli, so in terms of study, we have to set a certain limited time period where we can say, here's where we measure and there's where we measure. So that we can measure also compared to other groups. These are things we must do to show that there is something happening here, that it's effective. Dr. Laitman, okay, you do that. You show how they have confidence, fortitude, that they know how to deal with life today, contend with all the problems that come to our society now, etc. Go ahead, do that. Eli, but just a question, if in terms of, well, I'm just interested in this. If a group goes through a process of integral education, and the guide, well, can it continue developing on its own? If the guide leaves them, does everything vanish? It all goes away? How? Dr. Laitman, look, you have all sorts. I cannot say. It depends on the group. But in general, we're talking about a group that transitions from corporeal integral education to spiritual to spiritual integral education. And it begins to rise through the degrees of faith above reason and all the spiritual degrees and so on. Where will we stop? You don't need to talk about that. You need to say that they attain this integral feeling, they attain calmness and fortitude and so on. And in short, we are done. We finish by creating citizens who like each other, who are happy with life, content with government, they want to live in peace, and so on and so forth. They don't cause problems for the police. You can write whatever you want there. Avihu, the question is, can you say, give us a certain timeline. How long does it take before these results come about? Let's say a year, 2 years, where they can then transition to a different format, perhaps that of a community. Dr. Laitman, no, we need to be careful. If I start going into this, then I'll carry them straight towards in order to bestow and above reason. Here you have to have a very carefully laid out plan where everyone is on the same level there. On one plane, yes, where we advance, but we never go from corporeality to spirituality. It's only on the corporeal plane that we rise from state to state. Eli, so the way this society advances is such a constant, did it just rise, or do you have up and downs? Dr. Laitman, no, it's generally speaking, it's a constant ascent. Eli, so how long would you say until we see preliminary effects and results? A month, 2, a year? Results which are in the right direction. Dr. Laitman, I think 2 years, that's a good period of time where we see them coming to understand and know. Along with the changes that come from without, they will have changes coming from within, and they will be able to balance themselves opposite the changes that come from without and form a successful group. Eli, and the product of this group is, it's people, a person who cognitively and emotionally feels belonging to the society. And Dr. Laitman, yes, He's part of it in every way. He's fortified, he's stable. Eli, so health-wise, physiologically, and also behaviorally? Dr. Laitman, yes, of course. Guy, so if I understand correctly, the model with the additions we talked about today, do you see it as something logical that matches at least a reduced version of what we're talking about, this perception? Dr. Laitman, yes, but you, the smart ones, the professors, have to develop this process, the study program, the process in whole. You need to get printed materials there and video clips and movies and examples and everything. Guy, yes, that's a different problem we have. The group here, we take care of the research aspect. I wish to come to, when we come to a time where we have to present it to any interested individual, any interested group, we don't have any syllabus to give them or anything. How many hours? Dr. Laitman, yes, of course, they will ask for a syllabus. Guy, yes, exactly. So that's something we need to develop. I talked to Mushi about this. We need to understand exactly what a syllabus for an integral education program is like. What is it 200 hours? Is it what? What activities? What games? We don't know yet. Dr. Laitman, and I'm willing to participate. I see that it's becoming required. Right, so good luck. Guy, okay, I think we're past our allotted time. Duty, yes, we have just to be thankful now. So, a song maybe? Yeah.